This begins 1.8, and what I'm going to do is just really teach how this is no different, like teaching formulas is the same thing as solving, as if you had, instead of letters in here, that you actually had numbers. I know students really struggle with this unit, but it's very straightforward. Here's a lot of common formulas you've probably seen, like interest equals principal times rate times time, area equals length times width, distance equals rate times time, circumference equals 2 times pi times r, volume equals length times width times height. That's my cursive L, otherwise it looks like a 1. And this is supposed to be an I, but it looks like an L. Anyway, so for instance, if you're asked to find a new formula for T in this interest equals principal times rate times time, you might freak out. But calm down. Let's say you had a problem that was like, I don't know, 20 equals 2 times 2 times T. How about this? How about 2 times 5 times T? Just to change the numbers up a little bit. I did not do what I wanted to do. You would know that in order to solve for T, you would have to get rid of this multiplying by 2 and multiplying by 5. Well, how do you get rid of that? Is you divide by it. Now, it's okay if you divide them individually or at the same time, as long as you divide over here as well. Now, right there is all you really need to understand in order to get this problem. So if I'm trying to solve for T in this problem, I just need to divide both sides by P and R. And what that does is cancel this out, cancel out. So I'm left with T on the right side is equal to the interest. I'm struggling to write right now. Please forgive me. Divided by principal times rate. And that's all you need to do for this. The same thing goes for exercise 2. So if you have it written out, you can follow along. Because people freak out when they see this x, and I get it. But let's say this x was, I don't know, 3. Okay, well, so it'd be 7 times 3 minus 2y equals 5. Well, this is just a numerical value, so which is 21, but let's not get hung up on the fact it's 21. What you'd have to do first is subtract that term over. Now, here's the thing. You'd be left with negative 2y on the left side. Is right now you're probably thinking, well, I want to multiply this together and then figure out what 5 minus 21 is. But we can't do that over here because they're not like terms. So all we would be able to do is write that we have 5 minus 7x. And if you remember from an earlier math class, a lot of people like to put their variables in front. I don't care where you put this. So you might write it as negative 7x plus 5, and that's totally fine. But do you see the comparison on how that's related? If not, please jot this down in your notes that you have a question. You want me to explain this in more detail. If you're good, then keep watching. All you have to do now, because it's a multiplication problem, divide both sides by negative 2. And you can leave your answer like this. 5 minus 7x all over negative 2. Or, let me just write this down. I'm not sure how well aware you are of dividing by a whole number. You can just divide by each individual piece. So you could write negative 5 halves x. Sorry, negative 5 halves. And then plus, because a negative over negative is a positive, 7 over 2x. So these two things are equivalent, but one of those needs to be your answer for exercise 2. So just threw out another problem for you. I'm not sure why this is not letting me see the page, but it was supposed to solve for r. So again, do not freak out. This is just a multiplication problem, all right, with an addition. So let's say we knew all the other numbers. Let's just make up a value for a. Let's say it's 100. We'll say p is, I don't know, 20 plus 20. We don't know what r is, but let's say t is 2. All right. Could you solve this problem? I'm well aware that most of you would want to do 20 times 2 first, which is good. That's a good habit to be in. But the first thing that you would do to solve for r would be to subtract this 20 over. So 100 minus 20 equals 20 times r times 2. Now I don't want to change this around because I want you to look at this and compare it to the problem that we have. So the first thing we do is subtract 20 over. Well, over here, the first thing you should be thinking about is subtracting p over then. And hopefully you can see the comparison and how similar those two things are. So now when you want to solve for r over here, you got to divide by both this 20 and by this 2. So as I'm looking at this, make sure you divide by p and t. Now that's only acceptable if you also divide the left side by that value. So it's only okay if you multiply or divide by p and t like this one, so that these two will cancel. So your answer for r is a minus p all over pt. Now let's keep it simple. Let's just leave our answer like that. All right. So as we look at the next problem, exercise 4, this time they're actually asking you to do this type of problem. Now this is a formula, and because your test will be open note, for the pandemic, open note, open book, you can go back to your notes. You don't have to memorize this. So just a few things to remember. A is the ending amount. P is the starting amount. R is your rate as a decimal. So let me put in parentheses a decimal. You don't want to write 6 in there. You'll get the wrong answer. N is the number of compoundings. We'll get to that in a second. T is time, typically in years. But you have to pay attention to the directions. So I always stump students because I might, I don't think I'll do this to you, but I might say in 6 months. Well, 6 months is half a year if I had a problem like this. So I should probably explain the number of compoundings is you're looking at this word. So if you see a word like yearly, that's saying that n equals 1. Okay, the next one is semi-annually, which is actually these directions. That's saying n equals 2. Let's see, typically the next one is quarterly. That is for n equals 4. Trying to think of the next one. Probably monthly, n equals 12. You might see weekly. There's 52 weeks in a year. And then we'll just assume if I ever say daily, we'll go with 365. Obviously, I get if it's a leap year, that's 366, but we'll stick with that. So how do we do this problem? Russ is starting with 8,000. 1 plus the rate is 6, but remember, change it to a decimal, 0.06. N is 2, because we are semi-annually, to the 2 times 4 power, because it's in 4 years. Now, I don't expect you to do this in your head. I would say go to a calculator and just type that in. So, 8,000, parentheses, 1 plus, if my calculator, I can hit alpha x for a fraction. Others might not even have this option to make a fraction. Please reach out to me if you're confused on how to use your calculator. But you should get an ending balance of $10,134. Now let's do a good job of rounding. We usually do pennies, 16 cents. So usually 2 decimals when we do these types of problems. All right. Here's another word problem. Don't freak out. Just because it has words in it doesn't mean it's too difficult. So as you read through the problem, you might need to pause and read it and comprehend it. This is a distance equals rate times time problem. So there's 192 miles. That's your distance. with an average speed, so that's a rate of 7.5 miles per hour. Find the time that they spent cycling. Well, that's t. Now what they wanted you to do is to solve for t in this problem, which would be dividing by r. Well, it makes perfect sense if you ask me to divide by 7.5 then to solve for t. That's the exact same thing as this. And I would go to a calculator, 192 divided by 7.5, and you get 25.6. Now it does ask you to change this to hours and minutes. So because this is the way it's set up, our answer is 25 hours. So we truncate that value, and to change this to minutes, all you have to do is take that decimal, and there's 60 minutes in an hour. So if you take 0.6, the truncated part, times 60, that's how many minutes is 0.6. 36 minutes. There you go. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, please reach out to me. So I didn't finish this table because it didn't really work for me. And what they're asking you to do is change from degrees Celsius to degrees Fahrenheit. That's what F stands for. I'm not going to try and spell it. But what you could do is just solve this problem. Well, how do you get rid of a fraction? Is multiply by the reciprocal. So 9/5 c will equal f minus 32. And to solve for f, you need to add 32 over. So 9/5 c plus 32 is equal to f. And if that does not make sense, I would Google or reach out to me to ask questions. But this is pretty universally known. So all you have to do is plug in these values for c and see what you get. So again, make a fraction, 9/5 times negative 40 plus 32. So that's why they actually gave that to you, is this one of the few times that Celsius and Fahrenheit are actually equal to each other. I don't know if you know that. That's pretty common knowledge. Maybe I'm just weird that I know that. What I like about my calculator is I can just go back and grab the equation, and change the value to what I want. So now I need to figure out 10 is equal to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and then 30 degrees Celsius is equal to 86 degrees Fahrenheit. So as you travel abroad, notice that they'll probably have degrees Celsius, and you'd have to do some conversions to figure out what temperature that is in America. Okay, so I would encourage you to read this problem, make sure you understand. So we have this shed, which I don't know, this is giving me my picture of a shed, and they're creating a fencing to the side of the shed for a pen for the dog. Hopefully you can sort of imagine how I'm drawing this. I don't want to waste time just drawing a picture. But anyway, this side and this side have to be the same, and then this side will be the remaining distance. So he has 88 feet of fencing. So let's say this is 1, then the other side has to be 1. So the remaining side, you only have 86 feet of fencing left. So basically what you can do is just set up a table to figure out that this length would be 86, and then you can figure out the area of that rectangle would be 1 times 86. So that would be an 86 square foot thing. So, well, if we use 1 foot increments, then maybe the next one is by 2. Well, 2 times 2 is 4. When you subtract it, you get 84. So 2 times 84 would be that area. Now I'm running low on time, but I think you can tell the pattern. So this time it'd be 3 times, that should not have been 82. So what happens when I rush? Sorry, I was right. That was 84, 82. And keep going until you find the largest, and then you should be ready to do your homework.